Has called our meeting to order for 1 o'clock at Cleveland City Council work session today, Monday, May the 8th. And quite a few things on the agenda, but I do think it's very important to introduce our junior mayor of the day, who is in 4th grade at E.L. Ross, but was a kindergartner at Mayfield Elementary. He's a resident of Councilman May's district, and ever since kindergarten, he's been referred to as the mayor of Mayfield, and has wanted to do this for quite some time. I'm thrilled that the next generation of our city leaders are stepping up to the plate. And Mayor Silas, welcome.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of presentations today. That's fine. Yeah. And you're welcome to clap, Melissa. Thank you. It's like Rotary. We had one clap. So we have a couple of presentations today. Sue, the Arbor Day City Tree Planting presentation. Is that a proclamation, or is that a?
No, that's last week.
All right. So Mr. Fivas, you're recognized.
We had a Arbor Day event, which was about a week and a half ago, and a few members were able to come, but I wanted Dan to come and talk a little bit about trees and the importance of trees. This is our 31st year that we've been designated a Tree City USA, and
Wow.
And part of the budget, we have the mayor's new elementary school tree initiative. So we wanted to kick off this, and you kind of talk of one fascinating thing at the thing is Dan has planted over 10,000 trees in the city of Cleveland since he did there. So tell us about Arbor Day and what and the importance of that.
Thank you. Well, like Joe said, last week we celebrated Arbor Day. Got our 31st consecutive year as Tree City USA, which is, I think, a big deal. Basically what you have to have is, you have to spend $2 per capita on tree care, have a managing body, a tree board or a forester or somewhere along those lines, and an Arbor Day ceremony, and which we cover every year without a problem. And we, continue on trying to beautify the city and maintain the trees we got, plus add wherever one's available. And there's actually, my guys are out right now getting a tree out of the middle of the street on Parker Street that fell about a half hour ago. But we're trucking along and just trying to get everything squared away and make everything look nice. And I appreciate greatly the support I get from all of you, excuse me, with the budget and the equipment and personnel and such. And this gives me an opportunity to say thank you.
Well, Dan, thank you. Congratulations on 31 years. Continue with Tree City USA. I know the hard work that you put into it and the personal love of your job and your trees. And now that I know you've planted 10,000, I have an entirely new respect.
It's taken 28 years.
Well, still, 10,000 trees. That's biblical, sounds like to me. So congratulations on behalf of Mayor Silas and myself and the whole council. We really do appreciate what you do for our city and keeping our city beautiful. Council members, any comments or?
Great job. Good job.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Certainly, Mayor Silas would like to make it.
Thank you for all the trees that you've planted, because that really helps out nature and all that with all the oxygen that it provides. Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dan. And now we have a proclamation for my good friend, who's much too young to retire, but if I could have Mr. and Mrs. Greg Thomas meet me at the podium. All right, we'll go down here, Silas, and we'll give out a proclamation. Greg, congratulations. You're much too young for this. I told Greg, personal privilege, Greg trained me. I don't know if he's proud of that or not.
You did great.
When I began my journey in the city of Cleveland as a planning commissioner in 2004, it was Greg Thomas who took the time to teach me not only the ways of planning and the ways of the planning commission, but a very important tool called Robert's Rules of Order. I didn't know who Robert was, and I didn't know his rules of order. And it was that training, Greg, that I took with me to Nashville, because it's incredibly important in the legislative body that you understand Robert's Rules of Order and how to make things happen. And so, Greg, I owe you a personal debt of gratitude. But let's do this proclamation. Office of the Mayor, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whereas Greg Thomas started working for the city of Cleveland on the 8th of May in the year 2000 and will be retiring May 31st, 2023 with 23 years of service. And whereas Greg has served in several positions during 23 years as Planning Director, Community Development Director, Transportation Director, and NPO Coordinator. And as Community Development Director, you supervise the Block Grant CDBG program, working with HUD and local officials to implement programs for public facilities and infrastructure in low-income neighborhoods. And whereas you work with Impact Cleveland and City Fields, local officials, and United Way to establish Impact Cleveland and its successor, City Fields. And whereas Greg developed the 2016 Walkability Action Plan for pedestrian improvement, downtown redevelopment planning efforts, including crosstown connectors and the bridge over the railroad tracks. And whereas some projects Greg oversaw were PUD framework, grant for greenway, sidewalk improvements, RAISE planning grant, and the application of the US DOT for the crosstown connector plan in downtown Cleveland. Now therefore, Kevin Brooks, Mayor of the City of Cleveland, on behalf of the entire Cleveland City Council, do hereby proclaim today, May the 8th, 2023, as officially Greg Thomas Day in the entire city of Cleveland, and we wish you, Greg, a happy and healthy and wonderfully enjoyable retirement. Congratulations. Today is your All right, Silas, official portrait, Silas. Let Greg hold this. And I'll let you hold the other side. Okay, here we go.
All right, 3, 1, 2, 3. David. Thank you.
Greg, 23 years of you're welcome to make any comments you would like.
It seems like only yesterday, but anyway, it's time. We've got stuff to do. We'll running around and seeing this part of the country some more and that kind of thing, but we'll be around. So,
Here's your day.
thank you.
You can do whatever you want.
All right. Wow.
All right, and although it is not on the agenda, you will not be surprised to hear the following public comment has been requested by Mayor of the Day, Silas Randolph. Mayor Randolph?
There are a couple things that I would like to address about the homeless shelter, and if there's anybody that could help me pass on this information to the people of Bradley County who help fund the homeless shelter, to maybe get it changed to where homeless can have their service animals in the shelter, just in case they don't have enough funding for extra hotels for those people. Because I feel like it's just kind of hard. Otherwise, they just turn them down because they have a service animal. And it's also very important that I feel they should have some more facilities and some bigger areas to actually have people homed.
Thank you, Mayor. Brilliant. Yeah. All right, Mr. Fivas, we will put that into the record on public comments from our junior mayor today. And as you can tell, the city of Cleveland is in really good hands with Silas Randolph. All right, so our next item on the agenda is the city manager report. Mr. Fivas, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, and that was about as impressive discussion as we've had in a long time.
I would agree.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and city council members. Have a number of things on the agenda. Wanted to start off with some updates on some things that are going to be happening and have happened in and around the city. Want to first, I'm sorry that Greg escaped, so I didn't realize he was going to leave that fast. But we have another MPO presentation for him, and we have some other opportunities. But no one will probably recognize how much Greg has brought to the city, is that he is probably one of the most accomplished grant writers that we've had, as he's probably brought in hundreds of millions of dollars in grants from the state, federal government, and he can string words together as good as anyone I've ever met. Very accomplished, and I wish I didn't have an opportunity to say that with him, but his loss will be significant to the city, and but we are happy that he can go and enjoy his family and friends. So, secondly, my daughter is here for the first time council meeting, and she's here to see what the budget process looks like. And she asked me, and I said, well, you should just come and check it out. And she said, well, can I do that? And I said, well, sure. So she's here, and hopefully we don't disappoint. Moving on to real business. Inman Street, we've talked about our efforts on Inman Street. I think Mayor Rose had asked about it. It might have been the last meeting. That we got to meet with Dave Shealy, who was our point person on this, who's working closely with Cleveland Utilities, is that we've been waiting, that some of the struggles we've had is that in order to do the realignment of the street, we needed to have new poles or new systems for the traffic lights. The equipment we had out there was about 40 years old. They don't make the controllers anymore. We have only a few left in stock, so it was time to update those. So all those things are in line with redoing that. As I think we've talked about in the previous council meeting, underneath Inman is about 8 inches of concrete. Underneath the 8 inches of asphalt is that you have another sub-road underneath that. So in June, we will be having to close down Inman Street intermittently throughout the month to saw cut the road that we can put conduit underneath that road. So basically, we'll saw cut a 3-foot segment, we'll take it out, put the conduit in, and then we'll fill it back in. And then, and probably repave it. My guess is there'll be a little bump, but it'll be a temporary fix. We have to do that at Edward Street, we have to do that at Church Street, we have to do that at McCoy and Broad Street, and it'll take some work. When we worked on Edward Street, as you recall, we didn't saw cut, we kind of hammered it out. This is a little bit different operation, it'll be much more efficient. Get in, saw cut it, take it out, put in the stuff, it'll be a little bit more efficient. But, they hope to be able to start after the morning rush hours, close the street down, do the work throughout the day, and then by the evening, if they can, they'll try to reopen the road for those areas. And then this is a part of, then the mast arms would come in next, and then we're trying to build towards a repaving of Inman Street. Right now, we understand there's a little bit of a conflict between TDOT and the railroad on some issues, so we're kind of waiting for them to resolve some of those to get a lock down the timing on that. But anyone have questions on the Inman intermittent closings during June?
Mr. Fivas, thank you for that update. Will this look like when Chattanooga Gas did Paul Huff and they cut down the middle? Or are these saw cuts going to be on the,
Side to side.
Side to side.
They'll be crossed, it won't be up. the
it'll
middle.
cross?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And once we get a little bit closer, we will do, from the communication standpoint, we will use, we'll have a schedule for what we think it's gonna be, and then we'll communicate that through the newspaper, through social media, and some of those issues. I'm trying to let people know
Great.
on when there's those issues that arise.
Great. Any other questions from the council? Okay.
Last week, we had the opportunity, our staff led I think a very successful mission in downtown that was more focused on Main Street as far as coming up with, what are the things, the immediate things that we need to improve in the downtown area? And we got it. It was a very successful meeting in the fact that I think it was a great conversation. You know, they talked about working on you know, because in the evenings it's basically parked out here on First Street Square, and one of their thoughts were to put some emphasis there as far as redoing streetscape, potentially undergrounding some of the utilities, and which we'll have to look at. They talked about in the Main Street there's a lot of bricks that need to be repaired or replaced in some of the tree wells. And we talked a lot about the light fixtures and had a lot of feedback. And we're putting together kind of a list that we're going to go through and try to address many of those issues. Now, if the council has any things that they, after we get the list that you want to see, then we'll certainly have that conversation and move forward on those items. But there's an effort to work with them to come up with the to-do lists, and it was just a fantastic meeting, and if you have questions on the exact details, I'm happy to address those. Anything on downtown beautification? We have review of the sidewalk greenway master plan. And I want to have Robert come up and talk about this. When we passed the sidewalk ordinance, we had a self-imposed deadline of bringing that back to the council. And basically it shows, well, what will the greenway map look like and what will the sidewalk map look like? And Robert and his team went through the process of identifying that. I think it was, most of our corridors are built to have sidewalk. Many of our neighborhood streets, we don't require future sidewalk. It's just that sometimes, unless there's a walking corridor between schools or commercial areas, we didn't do that. So this draft that you have, and Robert can come up and kind of walk through the methodology of what it is. It is on the agenda later today, and you can certainly address any questions.
Okay, thanks, Joe. As he mentioned, we passed this ordinance about 6 months ago. A component of that was to provide a map that would also directly tie to our InterGov system where we do our reviews, whether it's for a building permit or site review or whatever, so that it would flag any staff member that is doing that review at their phase, that sidewalks are included or not. And so Erica in my office, as well as GIS, Chris, they worked diligently. All I did was say, here's what I want it to look like, and they kind of put it together. So we've got, you see the green shade, it's kind of an overlay zone where sidewalks would be required based on certain standards of construction, whether it's redevelopment or new development. You can see our greenways are in red and the proposed greenways are in purple. So the idea here is we adopt this map, we can share it with anybody, and then as soon as we get it uploaded, it would be online as well. So if people wanted to see, when I build will I need to build a sidewalk and those kind of things. So it's a visual component that kind of ties to that ordinance that we put in place back in November. Happy to answer any specific questions if there are any. This is just a component of that previous approval that we said we provide to the public in a sense.
Will make it a lot easier in planning commission.
Well, yeah, you know, so this, the way this all ties together, and it takes brains smarter than mine to do that, but it really makes it to where it'll tell us, the system tells us, yes, this is in that overlay zone of sidewalk construction or not. So it's a handy tool that can be used for a long time to come.
And just to see it, it looks even better on that 85-inch screen, but just
Yeah.
to see it in our council packet, I concur with Councilman Estes, having served on the planning commission, how much this is going to help going forward.
Yes, sir.
But it's quite a remarkable statement that we even have this kind of sidewalk and greenway system in a city of our size.
That's true, and the plans that have been going on, you know, Greg, who was in here before, starting some of that, and Corey, and a lot of people involved. We've continued to grow that, and I think it continues to grow from here to where we have a really good pedestrian network.
It's fantastic, thank you.
The,
Yeah, whoever's zooming that in, thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Not to have Erica do extra work, but it'd be great if you could color code our city parks. So
Okay.
people can see how many we have, how
Well,
they're connected, even schools.
Yeah,
have their own
so
color.
one of the components, and you know, we can easily add in
Yeah.
the park systems. We've already kind of begun talking about how we'd like that to look just on the regular
Yeah.
zoning map. So we can easily add in our schools and maybe some of our municipal centers and things like that. It wouldn't be difficult to.
That's the first thing I showed Mayor Silas here, was where Mayfield Elementary was on that just north of.
Absolutely, and we
Parker.
just did a sidewalk right in front of it recently, so. Any other thoughts or questions on this one?
Thank you, great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and to his team. Remember, if the council decides to move forward and adopt that, it is a living, breathing document. If we come back and we need to add stuff or make alterations, we're not, it's meant to kind of be something that we can update regularly and bring that back and forth, so. On the agenda, you have, is an update on the Tinsley Park renovations. We've made some good progress since our last meeting on trying to get that up and going. Just wanted to let you know that I thought the comments and the thoughts from last couple weeks ago was very helpful, and we're excited to make that park into a show place, just like we have Deer Park or a number of other, like Oldfield or Avery Johnson Park, or, you know, we intend to make it be highly used. Any questions? Next one is an update in the purchase of a fire engine. If you recall, last year we purchased a $1.6 million ladder truck for the city fire department, and that ladder truck is still being constructed somewhere, probably in Wisconsin. I think is where they construct them. That will probably come to the city of Cleveland probably around in December, and again that would be the I think that would be the fifth new fire truck that we've had in the last 6 or 7 years. We had a rehabbed one in between there. And then I want to announce and discuss on our agenda, we have yet another fire truck that we're ordering for about $950,000. The reason we're doing this is it's not necessarily in our budget, but it's taking about 30-month lead time to get these apparatus here. So we made the decision to go ahead and to pull the trigger so that we can have something. It won't be here till probably July 1st in 2000, in FY '26. And so it's amazing that something takes that long. So you have the current fire truck that we've already purchased for 1.6, and then you have this other vehicle that's on its way for that. And there's questions on this, is that it's nothing that's going to appear very quickly, but we thought it was in part of the due diligence. And with escalating costs, there are certain things, some of the standards with the federal government, with energy production and just different standards are adding costs, and we think getting ahead of it and locking in a cost is probably more effective for the city to do that. And if you have any questions, let us know. Yes, sir.
Are these additions to the fleet, or will they be replacing some current equipment?
They'll be replacing equipment.
And will we have a need for that equipment that's also already on the books?
Will we have a need for
The equipment that's being replaced?
We have a couple Rosenbauer fire engines that are not operating as well as what we would want them to. Usually you should get 20 to 25 years out of an engine. Is that somewhat close?
Yeah.
These are about 14, 15 years old, and they've had some significant maintenance. So hopefully if they go for another couple of years, that they will be used in just reserves, if they are still doing what they can do, if that's what you're asking.
But the plans are to keep them.
I would say having reserve trucks is important when you have that. Our fleet is fairly new as far as standards. We got a little bit behind. You know, we didn't purchase any for several years, 2016 to 2008 or 9. But so we're trying to play catch up and to work on doing that.
Thank you.
Any question on fire engines? And there is an item on the agenda in which you would start that process. Fiscal year '24
Mr.
budget
Fivas?
presentation.
Mr. Fivas,
Yes,
Councilman Webb had a
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry.
Before we get into the budget presentation, could we go back to the Inman Street closure for a minute? Are we doing that, or is a contractor doing it?
Contractors doing that.
Has there been any discussion, or is it a possibility that that could be done by boring under the roadway as opposed to cutting it?
It can't be bored.
It can't be bored. Okay.
Yeah. Not that I've heard.
Okay.
I mean, I'll ask the question again, but I'm pretty certain that wasn't there. The contractor's coming to break it up, and then we will haul away the debris, so we'll do a little bit of that.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Moving on to the budget. Hold up here. So we've talked 3 or 4 times in the last few months on the budget and growing forward. This was a very difficult budget. You know, we have a number of difficult things to work through, and I've talked to several of you. But for our growth in the city, you know, we've had terrific housing buildings and construction. But the state has a process called the ratio system, that they devise a ratio, and for whatever ratio system they came up with, Bradley County and Cleveland, it was in the 70s or so, is that it complete all, so you think about every year our budget is predicated on we're gonna do pretty much what we did this year. From next year, you add some additional salary or employee compensation and maybe a couple projects. So that's what a normal is, and then anything new that you do above that is built into your growth that you have in your budget. This year, this ratio that you see in the newspaper is it completely eliminated all of our growth. In fact, we lost $100,000. So if you look at the revenues from property tax from this year, from last year, we're actually in the negative.
Well, you know, Joe, I don't remember us getting hit this bad. I mean, it usually is pretty minor. I don't understand how they came up with the ratio.
Neither do we. Most years, to give you, it's usually in the 90s. So you have, it sheds off a little bit of growth at the thing, but it has something to do with the very high appraisal rates that we got last year, and the values and the properties that were sold, and so the ratio value was 73%, and then when you put that in there, both the city and the county didn't realize any growth in their entire, with all the houses and all the commercial, you would think, oh, they have a lot of resources and money and they're growing. Is that with that factor at the state level, it negates most of it.
It's a ratio between what properties are appraised at versus what they're selling for. And of course, we've seen some very unusual times in the increase in the price of property and houses. And now it will
Are you
correct
talking about, when you say appraised,
for tax purposes.
for tax
Yes, sir.
purposes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, they did the reappraisal,
Right.
you know, it wasn't
But
done locally.
we're 2 years into that, and I think we're 2 years away from another one.
Yeah,
So, Ken, a question to anybody. I understood that in terms of finance, we liked having things appraised at about 80 to 85% in case the economy went down and local taxes could remain at the same level. That was kind of how
I've
we, in
heard
Bradley
it.
County.
That's how we budget. We
Yes.
budget
Thank you.
shy. So when we put a number in there, Sean and them, they pick a number less than what the 100% number is. So that's our number. This is something that the state comptroller,
Am I not correct in saying this is something that's built into the equation for personal property? It's not, doesn't have anything to do with the taxation or value of real property, it's personal property.
it's both.
You sure it's gonna affect real property?
As far as my understanding. I mean, the numbers that we saw were over $1 million. I don't think we have that much personal property.
It's obviously a problem. I'd like to suggest, and I guess this is as good a time as any, and I don't know that it will benefit us any, but I would like to suggest that we ask our legislators in Nashville to work with the Tennessee tax appraisers, Stanley Thompson here locally, and any other, and see if the state cannot develop some kind of cap or floor on this so that it doesn't have the impact that it does on local governments.
so at least we would know the bottom line, that it
Yes.
could be,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I agree.
Have we been in touch with Stanley Thompson, Mr. Thompson? Y'all got
On this issue
on
or
this
other
issue?
things?
Just this issue.
No, he emails us what their findings are, but we haven't engaged in any conversation with him.
I can tell you, he's as frustrated about it as we are.
Does, Sean or Joe, does fiscal capacity play any variable in this ratio? Fiscal capacity of a county? Okay. I would love if he could, or Sean or Joe, if you could just get something from him to send to us, an explanation. I mean, I know you guys did the budget, but I would just like to know, because that is a big chunk, and it'll help you next year. certainly would help you, the more information we can get from him now, it would help on next year's
Yeah,
budget.
but he doesn't have anything to do with it.
But if he could
It's-
explain it.
I don't know if you can. Somebody can.
Somebody
surely.
can.
Surely.
And it's his job, I mean, he ought to be able to.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense to me.
I see the school boards here, I know they're working through TISA as well, trying to understand the new funding formula with schools.
Well, we will get some information for you
I
and
appreciate it.
answer
Thanks.
Mr. Bill's question. So, you know, we have other pressures that we've talked about. We have a lot of your big boxes, you have your hospitals, where you have paving, you have your industrial, properties that are pushing for tax reductions. So we have to watch those things very closely. Overall, what we're seeing is the pressure from inflation with wages, with just buying conduit or pipe is 3 or 4 times more than what it was a couple of years ago. So it's made anything you do from a budget standpoint, estimating projects or anything, I'm sure all of you know that and have seen that. That's one of the things that made this budget very difficult is just trying to understand what the new world looks like from the municipal city functions. So, and moving forward, there we go. You know, we're very historically fiscally conservative in our approach to budgeting. It's paid off for us for a long time. You know, since 2018, the council has done a great job of having many accomplishments. You know, we've invested $50 million directly in the Cleveland infrastructure, some of that's state, and a lot of it's federal and state properties. We've had 7 new miles of new sidewalk constructed in the city, all wonderful things. Our entire park system will be renovated by the end of 2024. When you think about where we've come from our park system to where we're going, you know, I think those are great quality of life additions. The good thing is we've had other funds. We've had funding from CDBG. We've had funding from the state on doing a lot of those renovations. We've changed the economic climate. We're seeing some decent investment from people from outside the area, and we continue to push that forward incrementally. We've added 2 miles of new greenway and 3 brand new parks in as far as rehabbing our facilities. And you know, our planning department has cited over since 2018 approximately 3,500 units. Many of them are not being constructed right now, but they were cited. Things have obviously slowed down, not completely, but are slowing down from a growth standpoint. Fire department moved to ISO standard of 2. That since 2018, we've increased the fire budget from 8.1 million to 12.1 million. So you've had 4. You know, what you were doing 2018 was 8 million, and now you're at 12 million as far as investing in the labor force, investing in equipment, doing a lot of those great things. And then $7 million in additional capital purchases, and a lot of that is fire engines, but you have the fire training tower. Then you have the police department, who has consistently been accredited and with their CLIA standards at the top of the standards that you can possibly get. Their budget has went from 9.1 to 12.7. Great investment. Capital purchases about $6 million. We've obviously constructed a new city school, and thank goodness we constructed that when we did. Who knows what the cost of that would be nowadays? But we put that school out there, and it's an incredible facility. And the work that we've done, Dustin, working with the county and the city and other CDBG, I think that they're working on selling houses every week and rehabbing houses and just really making a turn with that, those neighborhoods out there. And we've had significant success on our industrial recruitment. Obviously, we know about SK Foods out at there, but we also have a spec building, and then we have another, I think it was last meeting where we had a discussion from the battery people. Duracell, I'm sorry. And then you have the new pharmaceutical company that is coming in, and we're gonna have those ribbon cuttings here in the next few weeks, so we've had tremendous success. Since 2018, we've, in your budget message, we have done 125 construction projects in the city. 40 of them are considered major construction projects, which are more than 2 months. So I think that our staff from finance to Tommy to Jonathan, everyone has had a hand on bringing those projects to fruition. But that's a lot of dirt to be moved and a lot of success. And I think the council and every one of our staff deserves a lot of credit for that work. And we're talking about the past, but it's good to understand the past before you figure out which direction is forward. So again, 125 capital projects in the last 4 or 5 years. One thing I did is this last weekend is I read every budget message from about 2007 to about 2015. And I've done it in the past, but I just wanted to take that in. And I think that we're so blessed with the fiscal opportunities that we have right now. I was looking at this particular budget, and it was 2013, that just I think people, when you have perspective, that in the this budget that I was looking at, basically, you had no cost of living increases, so it was a zero, and you went through 4 or 5 years like that, and I know those are bad days for a lot of you because you had to work through that. We did not fund 15 positions. 9 positions were eliminated. There were, needs to allocate to 25th and McCoy. That was an issue, and this is just reading from the budget message. The funding for the Veterans Home, and we didn't, we have that, but we didn't have it at that time. The Jetport wasn't funded. A lot of those things. Transportation and paving was reduced, and really it was just doing essential items, and I think that we've grown so far, and one of the questions is, why have these changes occurred, and why do things change so drastically from that time to now? The economy's probably a little bit better, and a lot of it is the increased annexations from our sewer use policy. That certainly has brought a lot of new growth over time to help stabilize our budget, to show, that your budgets for the police and fire department go up by $4 million apiece in the last 6 or 7 years, which shows a lot of credit to the council for investing in them, but also doing a lot of projects, investing in paving, and a lot of those important things. So, financial outlook for the city, many of you, audits continue to be strong. We have a strong council management on top of many of the policy items from the budget. We've completed, and we've talked about this, and I don't think we can talk about it enough, that we've refinanced our debt. We were at 45% fixed debt, and now we're at 95% fixed debt. But also in part of there, we also saved about $10 million just in reducing our interest and a lot of our costs for putting all of that. And we're able to lock in most of our debt at a 1.3% rate, fixed rate, for 20 years. And I think that, I think the council deserves a lot of credit for that, because who knows where we'd be if we hadn't done that.
Right.
And then we obviously took on a little bit more debt, but we'd also had gotten the debt down to about 70 million. And I think all of those items are what set the stage for having, meet a lot of our challenges in the future. Here, we've seen this, I'm not gonna go through this. Our taxes are low, that's a wonderful thing. You all have seen that, we've talked about that. We have about 200, a lot of our issues that we have 250,000 people that drive through the city every day. We have to provide services to those streets, we have to provide services for law, we have to, for law enforcement. We have to provide services for the fire department on dealing with accidents and a lot of those issues. But most of those people don't live here. But you have a lot of people that come through that we have to meet, and we operate, our population is somewhere around 50,000. We probably think it's more like, the census people said it was 47,000 people. We think it's probably north of 50,000. They've already acknowledged that they didn't calculate any of our annexations, and the U.S. Census, according to the state census people, they say that the U.S. Census people messed that up. We check in, I think we did that last week, Mr. Mayor, on trying to get that remedied. Every year we lose revenue because you get money based for roads and a lot of those things that we really need to get that. But if we're that far off from the census, from 47,000 to what we think is probably about 53, there are options and opportunities that we could look at probably in a couple of years that you can actually pay to do your own census and get caught up, and we'll have to do a cost-benefit analysis on whether that would be important to do or not. We've had unprecedented growth, traffic congestion, street maintenance remain one of our largest issues. Surveys have shown. So this is something that the council has already approved. I'm not going to go into significant depth on it, but it's part of what we're doing. Next 3 years until end of 2025, we will do $136 million in projects. 116 of that will be from state, federal funds. We have $20 million in bonding, leveraging about $100,000 in funds. And even though we're doing all this investment with $136 million, by the time you get to fiscal year 29, what we predict right now is that your debt will be reduced from where it is right now by about 65%. So doing great things with projects and also reducing debt is a calculation for success. There's no tax increase that's necessary to fund any of this. I'm not going to go through specifics. Our Paul Huff projects that are all part of this. We've made significant progress out on Paul Huff. Was that paved today, Tommy, or did they not do it today? So probably, hopefully this week, if it stops, is that they'll be out and will pave the car wash side, and they'll probably pave the other side too, won't they? That they'll the school side and the other, and then we just have to finish up the one corner, and then we'll put in the mast arms. Some of the issues with the mast arms is that the company that was hired to put, they have one pillar in the ground. The other pillar they couldn't quite get done, so they hit rock and destroyed their auger machine. So now they're having to order a new one, so that's delayed us a little bit on that. It's always something. That is not us, that's a contractor. All the corridor, you've all seen these, I'm not going to go into specifics, but you're talking Peerless and Paul Huff and I-75, the Wyatt right in, right out, which we've got completed. and also working on Frontage Drive. Here's what the future of the Peerless and Paul Huff intersection will look like, and that's in your items. We're still waiting for 108 square feet of property to be able to bid that, but once we get that, we will bid that project and hopefully have that in the pipeline. Yes?
I'm sorry, to interrupt. What's slowing up the 108 feet?
The person won't sell it to us.
Just, I'm sure you're on top of this, just timing. If it's eminent domain and we can sort it out in court later, great.
We are in court with them.
Well, so we're in court, all right.
Yes.
We already voted on that, I thought, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did.
So we're waiting on the court, not the individual.
Well, either or could solve the problem.
Are we
But-
allowed to go ahead and take it and then let the court settle it later?
The judge will have to make that determination.
Okay.
Usually, yes. Usually they make a finding that, yes, it's a project that we need to do. They'll make a finding and then there'll be some type of arbitration for what the cost is. We feel pretty comfortable that we have our appraisals in order and
It's not holding us up.
we're just waiting for the judge to make the determination.
Okay.
So,
Can the council request an opinion from the judge?
I wouldn't suggest that.
Maybe the mayor.
The mayor can do whatever he wants.
That's you, Silas.
I think,
That's you, Silas.
I think everything's under control, we had hoped to be having dirt flying on that a little bit sooner. So we're delayed a few months, but that project's ready to go and to be bid and get going, once we get that determination. Here is a diagram of Mouse Creek and Paul Huff. A lot of work that's going on right now.
Mr. Fivas, you mentioned this Mouse Creek and you mentioned the
Yeah.
mast arm.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time in this area. Will any or all of the overhead utilities, will that go away, or is it going to be mast arm plus utilities?
Obviously, you have the massive power lines through there. They will stay for an eternity. But a lot of the right now it's wire, it's strung wire.
Right.
All of that will come down.
Because I'm
and-
thinking the high velocity, high voltage is up high. I'm thinking the street level
Yeah,
utility,
all of that should be gone.
because that will visually greatly enhance.
Yeah, it'll be a good look when we're done.
And does the green from Robert Varnell's, is that light shade of green a sidewalk?
There is a sidewalk right there.
And how far does it terminate there, or how far does it go down Mouse Creek?
It goes all the way to the end of the Lecoq subdivision.
Gotcha.
And for our project, and you could, well, that's just where it terminates on this project.
Okay. I know that there's quite a few new residential developments down Mouse Creek, so maybe we can add that to future discussion about future sidewalks.
Yep. So, you know, a lot of the things that we've talked about, and this is again, what you guys have already approved. Mosby updates, which are a few weeks. We're thankful at this point that we've had a First Baptist has volunteered to come and paint that. Any of you, we'll give you the date, and anyone's willing to come and help us paint that up. So that will be painted, and we'll ask for any other volunteers, of course. But I think everything is done. On the agenda today is an item to do a change order, which would paint the current Mosby Pool building so that the roof will be the same color as the other things, and it'll have some kind of blend. So that's on today's agenda. So we're within a few weeks of being completed with Mosby and ready to open that up. You know, you have the Greenway plan, just a lot of things that we've talked about. And then you have 25th Street, a lot of the changes there. You have A lot of these items are in the process, the 25th Street and McCoy from TDOT. It's on their official list and they're working on it. 25th Street and Parker, that would be a part of that. Same thing with Chambliss. 25th Street and Peerless. We have a TDEC grant that we're moving closer on. You know, we're still a ways off, but that intersection, and I think we're all very excited about that, is widening Peerless in front of the Ace Hardware, getting an actual real right-hand turn lane, but also on from 25th Street, turning, going up Peerless. There'll be another lane coming in there. It'll change everything on how that looks and operates in there. And that's, again, another grant project that we've gotten from TDEC. And then you have the MMA project, which is in design for building the multipath from Georgetown. And then you have the multipath TA project, so that builds a 10-foot sidewalk from Georgetown all the way down to the Greenway. Then you have the J-turns, which is completely redoing all 25th Street, those ins and outs, and put some limitations. And that's a state project, that's not our project. Then you have Georgetown and Canyon Lane intersection, which we haven't quite figured out what we need to do there. And again, a lot of these projects you've seen before are in the process, and happy to answer any questions. Getting to the actual budget presentation, start with this balanced budget. There's no tax increase recommended. Heavy investments continued for public safety. Increase in school tax funding for city schools. Significant investment for infrastructure and paving. And then you have all that stuff that just went forward in the plan. We also have a new organizational structure where you'll have 5 divisions: police, fire, transportation, environmental services, development and recreation, and then general government. Then you have the fire department. I don't expect you to read that. You do have a copy of that. Essentially, it just goes through a lot of the investment that we've had over the last several years. And just talks about where we've been and where we've gone, all good things. More importantly, in this budget, we've allocated $300,000 for the purchase of apparatus. Fire certification pay, you have those firefighters that have advanced EMT or paramedic licenses. We've increased those by $25 a piece. I think it's $75 now for one and $100 for the other, and they each go up $25. So that's $25 per month. So that's an additional $300 a year, and if you have both, that would be $600. Have a new ladder truck that I went through and talked about the new ladder truck. Then on today's agenda, we have purchasing the total cost, which is actually about $950,000 for the new engine truck that will be delivered in fiscal year 26. And then we also budgeted that Fire Station 1 will get new garage doors. That they're having maintenance issues, and at some point it just is very difficult to pay all those maintenance costs and fix those. So that's a significant increase in cost for replacing those doors. Police department in the budget, again, just talking about what the fiscal situation is. One key thing is that the police department will go to 12-hour shifts. This will be implemented on May 14th. Yes. So that will give us more units with more people on them. They've had a great amount of discussion internally about those, and there seems to be some good energy behind that. You know, to give some additional time off, and I think that it will work out well for us. And we'll have to watch that closely. Right now, and you may or may not know, but they do 10-hour shifts, and go from 10-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts. You know, this is the voluntary behavioral health. This is the system that we have working on a lot of the people that have mental health issues, and having some professionals in the field that we can call to help with, get our policemen and women from responding to a call and turn it over to a professional that can give resources for the person that needs care out in the field. We have a new body camera system. This is actually from we actually purchased that last year. It's 5 years that we pay it off. That's why it's showing up here again. But we have a whole new body camera system, which includes all the technology behind that. Equipment replacements, $300,000. ARPA funds, $400,000. Automated license plate readers, those are part of the grant that we hope to receive any day now from the state, which will be able to track on state corridors. It'll look at tags, and we'll have to do that. And I think that happy to, when we get that stuff, there'll probably be more discussion on you know, civil rights point of how, what information do we share, and how do we share it, how do we not share that. So you're taking pictures of people's licenses as they go. I think we're all right, but I think that there will be a time to have that full conversation. And then the Greenway Public Safety, which I'm not sure why it's at the bottom, because it's such a big mechanism. Chris, do you have those cameras built yet? So he has about all the cameras done for first phase 1. He's going to still, I think, work with Cleveland Utilities to help install those. So those could be up probably in the next few months, on having from basically the Church of God headquarters all the way down to Greenway Park as the first phase, and we'll probably spend some time probably working on the bugs of that system. Any question on the fire or the police budgets at this time? Okay. Moving to transportation and environmental services. As you know, we had Waste Connections here, and they asked for an increase, and we gave them an increase. This budget takes all of those issues into account. And as the council determined, I've never seen it do that before, it's kind of odd. But they took into account all those issues. This budget takes into account the new service that probably within the next couple of weeks, they'll probably be contacting, you'll start seeing communications from Waste Connections saying that we're ready to roll out the new 95-gallon carts, and we'll help them with that. And they've assured us that they have this, and they've done it in several other communities. I suspect that we'll get communications on that. Mostly the question that we get is, well, do I have to put my garbage in that? And part of the deal is, yes, you do. If someone needs backdoor service, as we've discussed before, let us know and we'll help facilitate them, which means that the company, Waste Connections, will get out of their truck and they'll go grab it and they'll help put it away. And we just need to inform them of that. Major street paving, we're working on doing major repavements of Paul Huff, which will probably be ready next spring. But we also have Freewheel, Mouse Creek, Peerless, and there's one more, in Atkinson Road, ready to be paved. What's great about this is it's very, very little time. They're state projects. There's no right-of-way, there's no design, that we get the 80% state money and match it with local money. We think this is more efficient using that state money of getting these major roads paved than it is waiting 8 years for a sidewalk to be constructed. Agree with that?
Joe,
Yes.
Atkinson Drive, will it have the traffic calming islands in it?
Yeah, we met Tommy and Jonathan with the president a couple of weeks ago, and we assured her that we would put in the same traffic calming in front of that college as what they have on the university's campus. And they were very happy with that, and we think it's the safe thing to do. The motorists may have a different opinion, but I think safety is just important. There's only 2 or 3 of these people, so, but yes. And they were comfortable with that. This year's paving, we've increased the paving for this 1 year by $750,000. This will help us get caught up on a lot of the paving that we had been trying to get caught up on, and we should be pretty much up to speed with the $750,000. We are doing some of our worst roads first, and then we have a lot of our smaller, really bad condition roads, mostly in our older part of the town, will be a lot of paving over there. Public Works equipment replacement, and they get $150,000 for new trucks and many of those things, but they're also, we were probably lucky that we got through last year with our snow plow equipment. It was pretty rusted, and and so it's time to bite the bullet, and we're spending $188,000 on dump truck and snow plow equipment. And 25th Street, Nicoy, we talked about that for a moment. They're in design. You know, we met with, I think Councilman Webb and Councilman Estes were there. We met with our legislative delegation and expressed for them again last week on how important that is. We said some nice things about them, but we need to continue to push them on that at every opportunity we get. Man. I'm not going to make you read that. So basically, this is the waste connection stuff that I already talked about. Moving to the development and the recreation budget. We have a new structure for our project management and for our facilities. For a while, our facility management needed to be improved. We intend to promote Ryan Turner into a position that he will be in charge of, and I say this with great respect, is we view that Ryan Turner will be now our new Hal Taylor. So any projects that are done, they'll flow through Brian. Any facility issues, that will have one person that can consolidate all that information. And we're very excited about that.
Joe, will that also include all the small maintenance problems?
Everything.
Everything. Anybody that's got a problem can, okay.
He's been doing that for about a year.
Yeah.
And he's done a decent job, but there's some things from a structural standpoint, you know, they've been doing it with essentially no staff. This budget actually gives them a staff person that can go out and fix, you know, and we have them here. They're going and fixing lights and fixing switches, and within, you know, they're not electricians.
Reasonable.
But it's something that, anything that from a facility standpoint, it will all flow through that. And I'm quite excited about that, is they have one person to call that the department head knows exactly who to call, and I think it will be very helpful for our organization, and especially with all the transition of moving into the Cherokee, that you'll have one person that can coordinate a lot of those issues.
Well, Joe, I'm assuming that these people will look at short-term, long-term maintenance as far as painting, replacement of siding, that may have to be done. Well, I'm sure it'll have to be bid out with a subcontractor, but they will handle that too.
And they do, and they have that. Probably about 2 months ago, there was an item that we had our first ever heating and cooling contract, that we're doing preventative maintenance on all of our heating and cooling, which we hadn't been really good at.
True.
Those are the types of activities that Jonathan and I have talked to, is that we want schedules for the roofs, painting, heating and cooling, locks, all those systems you need to go through and take care of all those things. And
The
so we're-
electric lighting, LED lighting and all that.
It will all be, we consider we're gonna be we've been doing some of that, but we're gonna start at ground zero and build a real facility system within the city. Because it certainly, we've needed it for a while.
Good, great.
And if anyone is organized, it is Brian Turner.
Yeah, I know, he's good, good guy.
Mosby Park, I already talked a little bit about that. We're within a few weeks of being ready to go with that. Civitan Park on June 5th. We will have, and again, that's our all-inclusive park. And we're extremely excited about Civitan, but that park is going to be much easier than a Mosby or some of these, because the infrastructure is already there. We have to put in some sidewalks, and we have some animals, and then we're gonna do a new surfacing to help with the inclusive thing, because if you go over there, it certainly looks old, but that one will be a quick park to get in and out of. Tinsley Park, we already talked about. Soccer complex investments. Jim Sharp Park, we're already in design for a lot of those issues. You guys have approved the new designers for that. East Circle Greenway, which is a priority project for me and us to get that done. That is a significant priority. Phase 6 Greenway. And any questions on recreation or development or recreation budgets? Okay. Other departments, Jetport, Forestry, I don't know, what are these things? Forestry, we have some new mowing equipment and some new vehicles. IT and GIS still are continuing to overhaul our financial systems, development systems. Downtown economic, we have Whirlpool properties up and there's the Jetport. We have new investments for hangar improvements out there. Other initiatives that we're talking about, a tree removal program. There are, you drive in some of our right-of-ways and you see a tree that has no branches and it's pretty much been neutered in the past. That this program that we'll want to partner with Cleveland Utilities, and I'm sure that they do something similar already, but to get some of those unwanted trees, and I'm not talking the ones that just have a little branches cut, I'm talking the ones that are in poor shape, and get them out of there, offer the homeowner, opportunity for a couple new trees not planted underneath the lines. Is that good? Trees underneath lines, bad.
Does this go under us or CU?
It's us.
It's us. I'm just speaking for downtown. I get this all the time from people that live down here, and I think they've all just become numb to it. But I think it would be very successful, and will be more successful than you know.
Yeah, I think we'll use some of our human capital to go and knock on the door and say, hey, here's this tree, do you want to get that removed? And if they say yes, then we'll work with CU to see which crew can go out and knock it down, and we'll go plant a couple
You
trees.
guys outsource though that every year, and they just come through and just hammer it. I don't know if you can tie those in together, right?
Possible.
Yeah.
We're open to all this.
They hate the orange trucks.
Have you ever heard that before?
Once or twice.
The Bee City USA initiative, just like we have the Tree City USA initiative that we've done for 31 years. Oh, you have a question?
For the tree removal program, when are y'all, is there like a certain day that y'all are planning to like have that like started and stuff?
July 1st. Good question. Do you have any questions on the Bee City USA initiative?
No, not really.
Do you like bees?
I'm not very decided on those.
Good answer. You like honey?
True politician.
True politician is great.
They don't vote.
I don't agree very well with wasps, so I'm not sure about bees.
So we need to be friendly to our pollinators, right?
That's right.
Cherokee Hotel project, we talked a little bit about that. Workout space for city employees. Right now, we have something that doesn't have necessarily the ADA active, or accessibility. And there's also Cleveland Brandley Community Services is looking to expand. We don't have anything in mind. If we come across something that we can have a better space, but that's located in the right places, then we look for that. And obviously, we're far away from specs. We don't have any ideas.
I'll give you one. You know, city schools are moving out of the Denning Center. Be a nice discussion. There's already facilities there, it's made for that. Just throwing that out.
No pressure.
Yeah, you didn't have any ideas, I was just gonna give you one.
I appreciate that. Is that a motion?
Nope.
Mayor's Elementary School Tree Initiative. I'm pretty excited about this program of linking the council and the mayor's time with every year you'll take a 4th grade class in each school and go out and show them how to plant a tree, and we'll go out actually in the field and plant a tree, tell them about why trees are important, how to actually plant a tree, and work on that. So this will kick off the next year around the time of Arbor Day. I think it will bring a lot of emphasis on the mayor, but also trees. Hotel motel tax, talked about that. Employee compensation plan and healthcare. This year we're giving a 5% total increase in salary. 3.5 on July 1st, 1.5 on January 1st.
Joe, could we talk about that a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that you don't normally pull money out of reserve for salaries. It's an ongoing from budget to budget. I would like for you to see if one time we could pull money out of reserve so that we give the employees the 5% on July 1 instead of 3.5%, 1.5%.
But we would not want to bring, you wouldn't want the rating agencies to see using one-time money for multiple goals. We can look and see what we can do.
I wish you would, seriously. Yeah, you're the man with the budget. I know you can work miracles. So,
It's just money.
just money.
Well, we can look at that, I mean, as long as there's any council members that are against that.
Anybody against it?
Look at it. There's nothing wrong with looking at it.
Well,
let's see what he does.
Okay.
So you're looking.
Yeah.
That's fine. Part of the budget is that every employee, we had employees that were making about $13 an hour, and we brought the bottom up to that every employee is making a minimum of $15 an hour in the organization. For full-time employees, or obviously part-time employees. I've already approved the police and firefighter new scales, but every single employee's grade that they're at moved up 1%, and some people saw the benefit of that. In total, it cost about $1.7 million to implement what we had done. Obviously, that would go up if you shifted that a little bit, but we'll look at that. And we don't, right now, we've not received our renewals for healthcare. I give a lot of credit to our team for our healthcare. We're actually in a pretty strong position. Our prescription benefits have been very beneficial and putting money away. You know, I think 2 years ago we had a claim for $500,000, which was a weird set of circumstances, but we're doing quite well in how we structure our health benefits and keeping our benefits at a high level. Retirement, we will present some options to the council, not during this budget process, but we'll kind of give you the kind of look at what options are out there in the TCRS world, and we can have a deliberative discussion on those points. Any questions on the budget? I'm sure I missed something. I will share that with the moving the grades and with the salary increases, I'm not sure if we did this what Mr. May asked for. That many of our employees, frontline employees, firefighters, I think received about a 12% increase on the position of firefighter. I think that would be very beneficial to our those level of positions, and other positions at the lower levels also be very. We've made significant investments in our labor and procedure. Any additional questions? Yes.
Going back to the question that you asked me if I had anything to ask about the bee city, is there going to be like maybe some additions of bee farms, like kind of like have a home for bees in here in the city?
We don't know, and can we put it in your backyard? We're just going to start looking at it, but any way we can get more people to help our pollinators, the better.
Okay.
At this point, I want to invite, if there's no questions, we certainly can ask questions later, Russell Dyer with City Schools, and he can see if you have any questions for Dr. Dyer.
First of all, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Junior Mayor. How are you today?
Good.
Good. Good to see you. Do you have an excuse note for being here today?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll clear that later, make sure.
I'll write him one.
You'll write him one. Good to hear it. First of all, I want to say thank you for your support for the 775 Raider Drive building. The school board, we have one member here today, did pass a resolution at our last meeting that will officially thank you, and those will be coming fairly soon to each of you. But we appreciate your support in that. Hal Taylor has somewhat moved into that building and has started the renovation process to a small degree at this point. The building has been deep cleaned, the elevators are working again, the water is running, electricity is on, alarm system is in there, the fence is down. I knew where you were going with that. So a lot of people are using that parking lot, and we're very excited about the future. The school board's had one meeting with the architect so far. There's many more of those meetings to go, so I don't have any plans to roll out today to you or anything else as far as that goes. But we are well underway figuring out the future of that building. So very excited about where that's going and what it's going to look like.
Hal got in the safe.
Hal got in the safe. Yes, we cut a hole through the men's restroom. And that's how we got into that safe that was locked and no one had a key. So we're in there now and didn't find anything. So there's nothing in there but empty tile floor. So that wasn't as exciting as we thought it might be. But we're glad to have that building and look forward to where that's going. As far as our budget, the school board approved our budget at an April board meeting. Inside of our budget for this upcoming year, it's a balanced budget, $59,775,387. Within that budget, the biggest thing that I would want to point out for you and for the public is we're making sure to take care of employees with this budget, and through that, taking care of our students. One of the biggest parts that I would emphasize is the governor has stated in his State of the Union that over the course of his next 4 years, his goal was to raise the beginning pay for teachers to $50,000 by the end of his term. We're doing that this year. The school board voted a budget in that brings the beginning salary for a teacher with a bachelor's degree to $50,000. And by doing that, we also increase the salary lanes of all the other staff that are involved down our years and through other degrees as well. So that's a significant cost to the system and one that is well deserved. It's about a $1.9 million increase to just our teacher salary line for this upcoming year.
And that's funded with state money.
That's funded through state money, local money, everything go in there, but that funding is going a long way toward taking care of our staff. We also, as Joe Fives mentioned, we have no employees that are full-time that will be making less than $15 an hour this upcoming year. So not only are we taking care of our teachers, but we're making sure paraprofessionals, folks working in the school cafeterias and so forth, are also seeing that increase as well. So we want to make sure that we're doing all we can to support what's happening in the classroom, but also in all the other parts of the building. We've had a task force at work this year looking at staffing compared to numbers. We've seen a growth in our students. We're adding 4 new ESL teachers this upcoming year. We're adding around 4, well actually more than that, probably 6 to 7 when you count it up, early childhood teachers for this upcoming year, as well as 4 teachers at the high school dealing with academic core classes. So growth is happening. You see that in our neighborhoods, new neighborhoods going up. A lot of different growth happening there. So we're making sure that we're staffing up for that now in the spring when the best quality and numbers for new teachers are out there so that we're ready to go in the fall. We're very excited about the budget. I appreciate the school board and their support and their vision to make sure that we're doing the business of school and that we're handling that well. I stand here to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any updates on the shortage of bus drivers?
Good question. That's a great question, and actually, yes.
Is somebody texting
So,
you?
He
I
rides
was
a
on top
bus.
of it.
Apparently he
So-
rides a bus. He rides a bus.
An update dealing with that, we did change the start times for school for the upcoming year. We're gonna put 1 hour between the 2 school start times, and that gives us more time to run those buses, double routes if we need to, and take care of that. We're also gonna be increasing the amount of hours that school bus drivers can work. That will also increase their pay. So between all of that, I think we will see some improvement with our transportation system for next year. Good question.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the council for Dr. Dyer? Councilman Estes?
5-year plan, facilities,
Yes,
what you got?
we do have a 5-year plan for capital improvements. I will say it's going to need to be drawn over again because due to all the federal ESSER money and everything coming in, we've been able to do a lot of our work ahead of schedule. So that's going to be redrawn when we get to October of this upcoming school year. But when we're looking ahead right now, we do have new roofs that have to go on, we have new HVAC systems that still have to be installed, those kind of things. But I think overall, we're in fairly good shape as far as that goes. And we see no need right now to come to you to ask for any extra funds for school maintenance items that we're dealing with.
Thank you, Dr. Dyer.
All right, thank you.
Hey, wait, Marshall,
No, we're in the.
Marshall will walk to give a budget presentation for Cleveland Utilities. Good afternoon, council and mayors. We appreciate the opportunity to be here before you today to present the Cleveland Utilities fiscal year 2024 budget. This is a budget that our board passed at their last meeting in April. So we bring this before you today. I know that we are in the transition period from the utility authority model. And as that transition takes place, at that point, the authority board will assume these budgets. But we do want to get this before the city council and allow your opportunity to vote on this as we move forward into July. And I'll be remiss in saying that Mr. Henderson sends his apologies for being absent. Unfortunately, he is having to travel today, so you get to have Walt and I here today. So we'll be glad to answer any questions. But I do think it is worth noting that, obviously, as Joe has alluded to, there have been great pressures on the utility over the last at least 2 to 3 years with the number of growth that we've seen across our service territory, which goes in line with what we've all seen in our own consumer spending. Obviously, it's been a very challenging time with trying to fund the number of capital projects that are necessary to keep up with the growth. The utilities are a bit unique in that we have to stay ahead of that curve of growth. And so when we're building facilities for what the next growth cycle looks like and making sure that we can continue to service the previous customers as well, so that we have room for the industries like the SK Foods that was recently announced. So I do think it's important to note that for fiscal year 2024, the budget for all three utilities is projected at approximately $150 million in revenue. One of the more starkly important factors, though, is that in fiscal year 2024, we are projecting close to $50 million in capital projects that will be completed in the next 12 months. That is a massive improvement when you talk about what our initiative has been, especially in reducing the safety concerns related to how we operate our water and wastewater facilities. As you all are aware, we are in the process right now of transitioning from a chlorine treatment at our wastewater treatment plant to a UV product. That project alone is in the $9 million range. It has vast safety improvements for our community and for our employees, and what we think is actually going to be a very great investment for our community well into the future with how we look at growth and how we continue to treat wastewater at our facility. Moving into fiscal year 2024, the filter plant will also undergo one of its largest improvements. We will transition from gaseous chlorine to sodium hypochlorite, and that project is estimated at somewhere in the $7 million range. So we are taking on very large projects across the territory, but it is important to note that those projects will be managed, and there are more to come right behind those as we look at what does the utility system need. It is important to note in the next fiscal year we are projecting somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million in debt. For the council to understand, that debt would be issued under the authority, so that's not debt that we would bring forward to the council for their approval unless something is to change in the near future. It is worth noting that we are looking at transitioning in this process in the neighborhood of $70 million in debt from the city's books. So that is money that will come off of the city's books and will move to the authority's books. A large chunk of that money is SRF money, though. And so thankfully we have been able to lock in very low interest rates with that money. And in conversations with the SRF team, they are under the belief that we will be able to assign that debt to the authority. So thankfully that money will not need to be reissued, and we'll be able to retain that low interest rate. It's worth noting, moving into fiscal year 2024, that we are projecting to add 3 new employees, and that will be across our water and wastewater divisions. To
talk about the main impact though, we are projecting that in fiscal year 2024, we would have a rate increase in our water and our wastewater divisions. It's important to note though, at this time last year, our water division was forecasting a rate increase of approximately 7%. We've thankfully been able to reduce that down to 5%. To give you perspective on what that is though, the gaseous chlorine that we use today for the treatment of our water and our wastewater systems, that has increased almost 250% in 2 years' time. To give perspective on that, what we have seen in our transformers and our wire is north of that percentage. And that goes down to every input practically into the utility model. And so for us to be able to keep these rate increases lower than what we projected this time last year, for us that feels as if it's a benefit. One thing to note on the wastewater side, we did project 5% last year, but we've been able to keep that at 5%. And again, we think that's a very strong task considering the amount of capital projects that we have ongoing here. As you all are well aware, our growth in Cleveland with our new annexed areas has been tremendous. And so for the utility to fund that infrastructure and to be ready for those annexations and for those new customers has also been a large task. So we feel very confident that we're going to be able to meet those needs and be able to reach those goals. To make one note, we are also projecting a wage increase for our employees. We're projecting that 3.5% in July. And with the council's blessing, we'll implement that July 1st. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you guys may have, but I do think it's important that the perspective is given that what the utility's been faced with is something that we've not seen in our history with the growth rate that we've had to go through. We feel confident that we're going to be able to meet that demand on the system moving forward.
Good question.
When can I sign up for broadband?
That is a great question. And so right now we are in the evaluation process for our fiber consultants that will help us with the engineering design and the layout of the system. We're hoping that we'll get that completed going into the fall. It is a bit of a timing apparatus, I would say, because we do need to time the completion of the fiber study and engineering with the transition of the authority. As you're well aware, we're going to issue debt to go along with the fiber system. And so we want those two to coincide together with each other. So as the authority is completed and everything is stood up on the authority's books, your fiber system will be ready to hit the ground and start putting cable in the air. So our best guess is that we hope we'll be getting customers somewhere towards the end of 2024, being able to sign up for service.
Marshall, as a utility board, you've got the tax equivalent payments, roughly $3 million. What will that look like under an authority going forward?
So as the authority, we will continue to keep the same in lieu of tax payment structure that we have today. So the city will be made 100% whole on the way the electric, water, and wastewater work. What is unique to our broadband business plan is that we did build in lieu of tax payment from the broadband division. And just for reference points, with the broadband project as a whole, what we project over the next 10 years is approximately, this is just new money, would be approximately $10 million to the city in lieu of tax payments.
5-year window?
That's over a 10-year period.
$10 million a year. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Councilor Casta?
Marshall, I got a couple things. The rate increase on water and sewer is 5% you're asking for, correct? Can you validate why you asking for 5%?
Yes, sir.
Because you're pushing water out in the county now, correct? We're providing water outside the city limits, is that correct? To districts in the county, is that correct?
That is correct. So we do have water customers that are in the county. Those are prescribed water territories by the state.
Okay.
So we do provide water to some of our customers outside of the city boundary.
What about the sewer? I mean, are we ready to 5% on it too? That's just.
Yes, sir. In our projections, we believe that a 5% rate increase is sufficient to be able to fund the capital projects that are necessary.
What are those capital improvements?
A very large one is the increase that we're having to make on the newly annexed areas. As you're well aware, we've taken in several parcels in the last few years, and those parcels are all due to these same city services. And so as we gear up to get these capital projects in the ground, this will allow us the ability to get these projects bid and get this infrastructure placed in the ground. on top of the increased costs that we've seen on the operating side, which has just been, in some cases, exponential.
Everybody has that. I mean, everybody's having an operation. You're just not cleaning utilities. School does it, my work does it. City has the same problem with things going up, and we're not passing on increases to our people. We're not having a rate increase. So could you live without a 5% increase this time on both of those?
At this point, the way I would answer that question is that the rejection of those two 5% increases, in our opinion, would actually create yourself a deficit to the point where in the next fiscal year, you would probably be asking somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 9%.
Well, we won't be doing that. The board will be doing that at the end of the authority, correct?
As far as the transition period goes, yes,
Correct.
the authority.
We won't be doing it. The authority will have that make. They can go 8, 10, 20%, whatever they want to do. We won't have a say in it. We'll
I
is
think
that
the best
correct?
way to answer that question is, the way that our methodology has been for rate increases is that we're under the belief that we need to make those in small incremental changes that we can then equate to the operating expenses and the capital projects of that day, rather than delaying those dollars and putting those dollars into future years, which then require larger and larger increases. That way the customers can see more of a steady climb rather than these large jumps, which are more impactful to them in their budgeting and their cash flow that they have to do as a normal citizen.
Right. Well, in the future too, when it goes to authority, I just want to ask him general questions in this part. I'll ask him, but I want to ask him in public. There are some things that Cleveland Utilities wants to get rid of, like the streetlights. It's a cash, it costs quite a bit on that part. Is that something that later on down the road, y'all going to push back to the city? Because y'all, I mean, you've talked about it before, you love to get rid of the stoplights and stuff.
Yeah, for streetlights, that's actually not something that we've had any conversation about
Okay.
having those transitions.
But will it something that'll come back to the city at some point because of the cost of it?
Not the way that we foresee it, no.
The traffic lights?
So as far as traffic lights goes, Cleveland Utilities standard has been that we've been willing and able to help those be facilitated for the city.
Yeah.
We do those as an investment for the city, and the utilities made whole throughout that investment. Our approach on that has been, though, that we are of the belief that if it can be done more economically, meaning that the city's essentially not having to pay for that investment twice, then we think it's for the betterment of the city that they look at the ability to take that over.
But y'all gonna carry it, y'all will continue to carry it, correct, Cleveland Utilities?
Yes, sir.
Traffic lights, y'all won't come back to this? Okay.
Now, as long as the city is willing and allowing Cleveland Utilities to operate in that fashion, we're glad to do that.
Okay.
We just feel as if it would be more economical, though, for the city to do that. Because if you think about it, as electric ratepayers and the fact that they're investing into traffic lights, those ratepayers have to be made whole in their investments. And so essentially, it's the same whether you're borrowing the money from the city side or if the utilities borrow the money. At the end of the day, it's the same dollar and how it's paid back.
I didn't want us to get into a position where we're starting to pay for things y'all push back. S&K, the upgrade on the pump system out there, $500,000. You want S&K to pay for it, but I guess y'all paid for it instead. You thought the business. I don't want us to get into a position where we have to, go back and forth and y'all say, no, we don't want to do it, and then the city has to pick the bill up on it to upgrade the pump system because what y'all put in there prior before.
I think the best way to answer that is that the utility, whether it was under a municipal model or an authority model, is
Okay.
going to continue to operate in the same fashion that it always
Okay,
has.
that's all I need to know,
We're still going
man.
to continue to be a benefit to the city and do everything we can to assist the city with this economic growth.
Okay, but as we move on, things will change.
In our understanding, we do not believe that it will.
Okay. I'm just saying, when I move off the board, you move off, everybody comes in, it's gonna be, people will see it different ways then, and they'll start changing. That's fine, as long as I got your word on it. Okay, I'm good.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you, Mr. Stinnett.
Thank you.
Mr. Fivas, it looks like we have a few minutes for a review of a 3 o'clock agenda, if you're interested. Council members, all right, so we have, we can forego the review of the 3 o'clock as well as reports to the council members. Mayor Silas, do you agree with that? That we would move that to the 3 o'clock session?
Sure, as long as the council agrees.
Okay, council, are you in agreement? We have us a real good junior mayor today. All right, the council is in agreement. We will move both the reports of the councils. We have no further announcements. It looks like it moves us to the adjournment of the 1 o'clock session. Mayor Silas, if you will tap that gavel, we're adjourned until 3 o'clock.